5.41 is live. I crafted yesterday the vast majority of the day on stream until we had a wonderful Ethos conversation, which will be live here on the channel. But 541, 541. I'm going to be doing that a lot. That was a blast. This is the end of the restoration of Ishgard ish. And I just wanted to talk about kind of like how this journey has been. I have not been somebody who's gone for the titles. I've very much been a spectator, much like I would be for the World First Race, where I go and I watch streams of people crafting, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. And then I do the math, and I'm like, I have time to watch them do it. I think that would have been the same amount of time as actually doing it, kind of. So I've enjoyed that. Um, it's shocking how much of gathering at that level, especially day one, is how much of crafting is actually just gathering, because like everything's expensive and you need so much of it that you kind of end up gathering. Like even when you set out to like, I'm gonna craft for 4 hours, okay, you're gonna gather for 2.5 or 3 hours, and then you're gonna craft for the remaining time. It's a shockingly large amount of gathering that's tied to it, but it's a lot of fun. I like that to get kind of that final ingredient, I have to craft it on another crafter, and that takes me into other zones. I love seeing how many people. That was my initial response to the very first stage of Ishgard, is that I love how engaged it is. I love how many people are there, and it just slams the zone. There's other people gathering, there's other people crafting, and it makes otherwise relatively non-social content into this very social thing, like Blue Mage and things like that, where like it looks antisocial on paper. When you look at the patch notes and all that, oh, you're like, oh, that's going to be this really solo thing, and it's limited to, it can only be really done in these couple of ways, and it's really going to mostly be centered on like these certain time windows, and it just strikes me as really very limited content, very secondary content. But in actuality, when you engage with it, especially when it's brand new, it can be really social, in the same way that doing your MSQ during the opening weeks of an expansion or on patch day of a content patch can be very social. Yes, you're in a cutscene by yourself. Yes, you're killing monsters by yourself, but you're doing so around other people. So it feels kind of in the same way of like going to a convention. You're surrounded by other people that have the same interest as you, and that feels really fun on its own. And so like I love that. I think it does start to beg the question, what happens next? The gathering content of Diadem, I don't think has enough to it to age long term. The crafting stuff just seems to be tiers of better turn-ins, and like, yeah, there's an expert component and all of that, and there's aspects of it that are layered up. But once we complete the city, once we finish it, do we just leave the final tier active and you're just turning them in for the scripts so that you can buy the mounts? Do those mounts go away? What happens? Like, are there other continuously ranking seasons? Like, is there new titles that become available? Do we just build a different city in the next expansion? If we go to Garlemald, do we just build that? Like, is there a city that gets destroyed in the story or has been destroyed in the story as a result of either this Bosnian Southern Front stuff or something like that that we go to, and then that has to be rebuilt? Um, I don't really know. Like, I would love to see kind of the crafting fate type mechanic brought out into the world. I would love to see that kind of, I think we've talked about that, and the community's definitely kind of brought that up, and I think that would be really neat to see, maybe as an extension of like crafting beast tribes and things like that, have like things out in the world that kind of break down and need to be fixed, and crafters can go there and kind of engage in their own way. I think that would be really fun. I think that there's aspects of it that I really like, but like, I'm having fun because this is all new to me. I'm having fun because I'm going to take this phase seriously, and I didn't take the last phases seriously. I did the first phase to see what it was all about. I didn't do the second or the third phase. I just watched. And now here we are in this fourth. I think that's right. I think that's the math. Here we are in this fourth, and like, I'm going to do this for me, right? And so like it's all new, and I'm gonna get experience, and then I'm gonna try expert stuff, and I'm gonna gear up, and I'm gonna go. And so for me, it's this whole thing. But like, what happens when next expansion, all of my crafters and gatherers are at 80 from the start, and I get to 90? by, 6.1, maybe 6.15, and then this content drops, and like the experience isn't a component, and like expert recipes or something, I know how it works. Like, what fills this system out? So like this is a split video because like I'm really having fun. Today is super fun, but I also kind of feel like it's the beginning of a relic grind where I'm like, if you ever think this is going to be fun, do it now. Like, do it now. Drop what you're doing and do Ishgard now, because whatever you're working on the side, like I don't know if this will age as well as whatever you'd be putting to the side. If you have MSQ to do right now, my general advice is get to cap. And the best way to get to cap on your very first character is to do the MSQ. So stay focused, enjoy your MSQ, get to cap. But this Ishgard restoration stuff, if you have this unlocked and you're working your way through Shadowbringers lore or something like that, like that'll keep, that'll hold. You have until the end of the expansion to finish that. Maybe take some time this week and try crafting and gathering. Like, and that feels weird. It feels weird that I would even have that thought. And I think that's because like this feels like a seasonal event. This feels like a moment where it's enjoy it now or hear about it later. And if you want to partake, like this is it. This is the time. And I'm having a ton of fun, but I just don't know where it goes from here. Do crafters and gatherers have something next expansion that gets added to them to add depth in trade for this? And if so, what does that look like? Crafters and gatherers historically have been a way to kind of work on kind of building stuff for your house, repairing your gear in big raids, building stuff when they are relevant within gear wise. There's points where like their gear is really helpful in gearing up other crafters, gearing up, but also battle jobs. There is components to them that they build leveling gear for people leveling crafters, gatherers, battle classes where maybe they're missing a couple slots. They craft food, they craft potions. There's a number of consumable type things. They craft those. It's got its place, but does that place need to be expanded moving forward? They took a ton of effort and time this expansion making crafting and gathering content a very big part of Shadowbringers in a way that crafting and gathering has not been as big of a part of expansions past. And each expansion's kind of had its own way, but like this time I really feel like the role quests were a lot bigger than the crafting quests I've done. I haven't done them all. And I feel like that's just my first personal take based on what I've done. I feel that the Crystalline Mean gave us a really defined area that was nice to be in, and we got a beast tribe that's crafter and gatherer. Like Namatsu was a big step forward in like the quality of life around a beast tribe that could be provided to that group. In my opinion, Mughals were a real pain. Isn't that the previous one? Am I getting that right? So I think as somebody that's kind of dabbled with it over the years, I'm finding this content really engaging, but I will admit that like the fact that as I level them, I don't gain additional cross-class skills. The fact that as I level them, there's really not a perk to leveling one over the other. I'm just kind of leveling them all. And that feels odd. It feels odd that there's no personality to the individual crafters. At least sub cap. Maybe at cap it goes away. And so I feel myself caught up in this event, caught up in this moment that feels really good. And then this other part of me is secretly dreading when the event ends, when Ishgard comes to a close, and when the use for this zone wears off. I'm nervous about what that leaves crafters and gatherers going into next expansion. It leaves this void where this content has become part of that personality, part of that reason for doing. And it's been invitational, so it's brought people in that maybe wouldn't have ever done it otherwise, but it's also kind of built itself as a core pillar of what crafting and gathering is this expansion. And should you remove that, it's not like ocean fishing where you just add some roots and it lives on forever. It is content that felt very directional, and it felt like a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. And so if you just let it live on forever, it kind of cheapens it, right? If Ishgard has those turn-ins forever, and Diadem always drops Ishgard-based stuff, and you can just do this forever, then why did we say that we finish the city if it just kind of keeps going. That kind of breaks that. But if we just build another city, that might feel good the first time because people are like, oh, I missed Ishgard, and whatever city we build instead or whatever major project we take on instead is something that they can level up the way we do fates and all that, and we know how to do it. And so like, oh my gosh, I missed that last one, I won't miss this one, or this is a city that means more to me than Ishgard or whatever. That's fine for the second one. Okay, but then in 7.0, do we do a third one? And then in 8.0, do we do a fourth one? Like at some point, this content either gets repetitive and it becomes that very 2 tomes in a raid expectation, or it gets ended and removed. And my question is, what goes in its place? What takes up that part of what drives people to craft and gather? You've now built a community, and you've now changed and altered a community in a way where this is an impact. And when you remove it, what fills that void? And so I think that's kind of my 5-4-1 reaction. It's content that I am excited about. It's content that I'm glad is added to the game. But then the pessimistic side of me creeps in and goes, but what's next? What comes after that? And so a little bit of me is dreading the after times, which, is mostly just that we don't know. So maybe on February 5th, they tell us. Maybe at some point during the expansion buildup, they tell us. Maybe it's May. Maybe it's April. Maybe it's early. I don't know. And so I'm hoping that it's a question that gets answered, because without it, there's a sense of dread that we are running towards a cliff and we are accelerating. And we have invited more people to run with us than ever before. And I'm trusting there will be a bridge there. But there isn't yet. And so I'm just running. And I find myself taking this one seriously, taking the last one seriously, because I do want to do this. And I'm out of time to, procrastinate. I'm finding myself just joining the race and running as fast as I can to catch up. And so I'm just nervous. And maybe everybody else that's been running towards that cliff is like, we've been doing this all expansion. Why are you nervous? It's been great. It's fine. Deal with the cliff when you get to the cliff. But that's kind of my thoughts. So I just wanted to put out 5-4-1 thoughts. Not really sure if patch response thoughts are something that I need to do here. It just kind of, I engaged with it pretty heavily on stream today and really enjoyed it. Had a blast doing lore stuff with Evis. That's going to be 2 separate videos. So if you have not subscribed and you've made it this far into this video, just know that content is way better than everything I just did. So like way better. And then I have some really exciting stuff that I'll be filming coming up. So not yet ready to announce it because it hasn't quite taken physical form. But it's still a little more ephemeral than the other stuff. But I'm excited about it. We're putting that at the end of the video. Because if you made it this far, chances are it's going to interest you. It's about gaming. Kinda.